Greetings to everyone out there in the NoDQ galaxy. It is a new era in the world of professional wrestling / sports entertainment, whatever you want to call it. Tonight, I am going to be recapping not a WWE show, but the very first show from All Elite Wrestling. Double or Nothing just wrapped up in Las Vegas, and that show was insane. It was action-packed from start to finish. We had a few big surprises, including a really big surprise at the end of the show. So let's go ahead and get started. I know it's late on the East Coast. It's already past midnight for many of you watching this. We'll get right into the review. Thank you to everyone for watching live or on demand. I appreciate your viewership. Power Packers 90 with a $2 super chat says, "Hey Aaron, can I call in when I get to my hotel?" Let's see how the review goes, Power Packers. Remind me in a little bit. Maybe we'll get you on to get your live perspective. All right, and if you're watching for the first time, I hope you enjoyed the video. I know a lot of people are tuning in, wanting to know what happened, so let's go ahead and break it down. The first match was during the kickoff, which was called the buy-in. We had the Battle Royal, or should I say the Casino Battle Royale. And Ham Kano with a $2 super chat says, "Did you see Tony Schiavone in the crowd?" Yes, I did. Tony Schiavone was there, and apparently a few Impact Wrestling stars were there. I believe Killer Cross was somewhere in the crowd. Sam Littleton with a $2 super chat says, "Should I spoil the end? Laughing my ass off." You can in the chat room. I'm not going to read it off, but I'm sure most of you know by now what happened at the end of the show. We had the Casino Royale Battle Royal with the winner becoming one of the #1 contenders for the AEW World Championship, and they did reveal the belt on this show. If you haven't seen it, head over to NoDQ.com. There's a photo under the segment with Bret Hart, who came out and presented the championship, and more on that in a little bit. So we had this Battle Royal, and basically the format of it was that because there's 4 card suits, there's 4 different groups of 5, and they came out at random order depending on which suit they drew. The clubs, the first 5 guys started off the match. MJF was one of the participants in this, and then we had the Diamonds come out 3 minutes later. You had Shawn Spears, formerly known as Ty Dillinger, come out. He got a huge pop from the crowd. Sam Littleton with a $2 super chat says, "I have too much respect for you to do that." Well, go ahead. You can spoil if you want in the chat room. That's up to you. That's entirely up to you. I'm not gonna fault anybody for talking about whatever they want in the chat room. I'm just gonna try to go in order here with the review. We had the Hearts come out next. Nothing to do with any Hart family members. In fact, we did have Billy Gunn as one of the Hearts, and also Glacier from WCW. MJF got a lot of heat in this match, and he actually eliminated Glacier to get a lot of heat. And then we had the Spades come out as the 4th and final group. This included Tommy Dreamer. Dreamer brought weapons to the ring and started using the trash can lid as a weapon on everybody. The crowd started chanting ECW. We also had a couple of other notable people. Jungle Boy was out there. Brian Pillman Jr., who is apparently stuck in the 80s with the mullet. Tony H just left a $2 super chat, says, "Can we stop with the guy wasn't eliminated ending?" I'll get to that here in a second. Don Wooding with a $3 super chat. Thank you for that, Don. Says, "Aaron, was the pay-per-view worth $50, yes or no?" 100% yes. Money well spent. All I will say without getting too far ahead of myself is that AEW fired on all cylinders tonight, and it was an incredible show. I mean, there's a lot to say about it, so let's get to the rest of the review here. It was worth the $50. I mean, it was definitely a show where they went all out. And speaking of all out, they do have another event coming up in Chicago, All Out. I believe it's August 31st. So that's going to be another huge show, their 1-year anniversary since All In. The last entrant was number 21, the Joker entrant, and that was Hangman Adam Page coming out as the last entrant. There was a double leg amputee, Dustin Thomas, in the match, and he did some impressive stuff. He actually eliminated Shawn Spears, but then to get even more heat, MJF eliminated him. And then there was this guy named Orange Cassidy. I've never heard of him before, and I'm not sure what his gimmick is, but he was the 22nd guy, and he started giving Tommy Dreamer these little light kicks, and I guess this was done for comedy, which, you know, it's a battle royal, and they got the comedy and stuff in these types of matches. I would say if it's for the world title, you should maybe ease up on the comedy, but you know what? It is what it is. It's the new era of professional wrestling, so I guess his gimmick is that he is a wrestler that doesn't actually hurt people. I don't know. I've never seen him wrestle before. Sam Littleton with a $2 super chat says, TJS wished EC3 was in the Battle Royal, laughing my ass off, or laughing my butt off. He's being PG. He's such a nice guy, Sam Littleton. Yeah, TJS was complaining in the NoDQ chat room, like, where's EC3? Like, he just wanted to see EC3. And Mr. Anderson's like, EC3 should go to AEW. Anyways, go into what Tony H was talking about earlier. There was the false elimination where it looked like Adam Page had won the match, but then it was revealed that MJF had not yet been eliminated. And then MJF came from behind, tried to toss out Page, but Page managed to not get eliminated, and then got back in the mix, eliminated MJF officially to win the Battle Royal, and that means that Adam Page will be challenging for the AEW World Championship. And just a little note for those of you tuning in, if this is your first time watching, head over to NoDQ.com for all the results from the show. We got a bunch of little clips from the show, including the look of the AEW World Championship. So if you did not see the pay-per-view, you can see some of the images from the show, of course, with the results and everything. And you have the recap right here. I hope you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you like it for all the new people watching right now. And if you watched before, then you know what to expect. So let's move on here to the main card. Well, actually, we're not on the main card yet. We had a second kickoff match, which I almost forgot to mention here. Sammy Guevara versus Kip Sabian. Again, I've never heard of these guys. Maybe Cindy G might be more familiar with them. This was officially the first AEW's singles match, and the referee was a woman, Aubrey Edwards, and I've actually seen her referee before at the Defy promotion that ran here in Portland, Oregon. So I have seen her referee, and I'm very happy for her that she got the gig. Pretty standard match. I mean, good stuff here for a kickoff match. I mean, not much else to say about it. So we'll move right along here. Sabian countered the 650 and hit his finisher to pick up the victory. So that was the little note there regarding the first official AEW singles match. We had the pay-per-view introduction. All the members of the Elite came out. We had everybody wanting to do the introduction, but then Kenny Omega got the nod since he wasn't at All In. He said the big introduction, said welcome to Double or Nothing, got the fans to chant AEW. Matt Jackson then said that there were 20,000 people in the building, and Cody Rhodes was like, dude, the building only holds 13,000. And Matt's like, well, this is wrestling, so you got to round up. And then Kofi was like, yeah, all right, fine, and said, brand new attendance record of 20,000 people. Of course, this was a reference to WWE, how they inflate the attendance numbers for all the big WrestleManias. So this was pretty funny. I know some people watching this were like, man, they're doing all the WWE knocks, same thing that WCW and TNA would do. I think, when you're trying to start a war, you got to fire some shots here. I wouldn't make a habit of doing it all the time. This was the first show. If they do it on a regular basis, it's going to seem petty. So you don't want to make a habit out of doing it, especially if WWE doesn't do it. But hey, to be fair, Triple H did reference AEW indirectly at the Hall of Fame. So there was a little bit of a knock on AEW at that event. Don Wooding with the $2 super chat says, is WWE in trouble come fall? Only time will tell. I mean, it's going to be a very interesting rest of 2019 for sure. Future Shocker 16 with a $2 super chat says, if following events are like this one, look out WWE. And Detective Mocha with a $2 super chat says, if CM Punk joins AEW, would you say bye WWE war? Well, quite frankly, I mean, as much as we talk about CM Punk, and spoiler alert, he did not appear on this show, nor did I think he would. The big surprise at the end, I would argue, is maybe even bigger than CM Punk. I mean, one could argue that considering the fact that CM Punk has been gone from the limelight for so long. Obviously, the hardcore fans remember him, but I'm not sure how many casual fans will be all that familiar with CM Punk these days, whereas the guy that did show up was on WWE television not too long ago. We had the national anthem. We had some pyro, which the pyro was pretty good, but not overwhelmingly. I wouldn't say it was overwhelmingly interesting. Like the pyro was not that extravagant, in my opinion. Maybe they just wanted to keep it low key, but I felt like they could have done more with the pyro, more explosions and stuff. They didn't really do that. I mean, they had little light fireworks and stuff. But, I mean, hey, it's better than nothing. So I won't complain too much. It's nitpicking on my part. And pretty much any criticism I have of this show is going to be essentially nitpicking. Future Shocker 16 with a $2 super chat says, WWE AEW events fell same night. Which would you watch? Ooh, that's an interesting question. I think it's too soon to say, and I don't know if they're going to go head to head. I mean, that's something to think about way down the line. Which would I watch live and which would I watch later on demand? It depends. You know, back in the Monday Night War, for the most part, I didn't have to choose because I got the West Coast feed of Nitro, and then after Nitro was over, Raw aired on the USA Network. I had no option to watch Raw live on the West Coast, only Nitro. Tony H with a $2 super chat says, WCW Pyro feel. Yeah, and it did have a little bit of WCW/TNA production values. Keith Mitchell, I believe, is the guy in charge of production with AEW. And you could even see with some of the camera angles when they're panning around the crowd, looked very much like Nitro with that camera angle that they had when they pan around the crowd, from the crowd to the ringside area. Definitely had a little bit of a Nitro feel. If you go back and watch Nitro and see, you know, when they pan from the fans, you know, from one side of the arena to the ring and the stage, very similar camera angle to what they did with AEW tonight. Dylan with a $5 super chat. So here's the verdict on what Dylan thought about the show. He called in to the No DQ&A live stream a couple of days ago. Actually, it was yesterday. He says, Aaron, this is my first wrestling show I've seen on pay-per-view in years. I watched it live and with my family, and even my hard-to-impress dad enjoyed it. Well, there you go. I mean, I would think that most casual viewers enjoyed this show. For me personally, like for the people I was not familiar with, it was a little hard to get into it. But I thought for the most part, they did a pretty good job explaining the characters. So we had the announce team. Let me talk about the announce team real quick before we get to the match results. Jim Ross was doing the announcing, but Excalibur was also there. And Excalibur was doing a really good job, I thought, carrying everything. And I thought he brought out the best in JR. You know, JR, he's a bit past his prime, but I felt like JR was really good with adding to the storytelling and explaining why things mattered on the show. And I think Excalibur was good at moving JR in the right direction. So yeah, hats off to Excalibur for getting the show off to a good start. And Alex Marvez, the third guy, he didn't really add much. Quite frankly, I think we would be better off with a two-man team. Why do we need three people? If AEW is going to be an alternative, let's just do two people. Let's not do what WWE does with the three people. I don't think three people is necessary for an announced team. So maybe just do JR and Excalibur moving forward here, or get like a heel announcer, like a really good heel announcer to side with the bad guys. That might be acceptable. All right, so I talked about the commentary. Let's go ahead and get to the pay-per-view. The set was great. TGS said talk about the set. Really nice set. The stream worked fine. So Bleacher Report's stream, I had no problems with whatsoever. No stopping, no buffering. It was crystal clear the entire time. So credit where credit's due. Bleacher Report, their stream was perfect. And, I would have been pissed, paying $50 if there were issues. So it turned out really nicely. Alex James with a 99-cent super chat. Thank you for that, Alex James. Set was great. Everything looked really sharp. No complaints about that. TGS is like, my stream kept getting taken down. Well, there you go. TGS admitting to the world that he illegally watched Double or Nothing. So there you go. Shame on you, TJS. Shame. All right. So the first match of the evening was SoCal Uncensored SCU versus the Strong Hearts, Seema, T-Hawk, and L. Lindemann. Only familiar with Seema a little bit because I saw him in PWG a few times. Obviously very familiar with Daniels, Kazarian, and Scorpio Sky. SCU cut a promo about how Las Vegas might be their favorite worst city. Really fun opening match. Lots of fast-paced action. Got to give credit to Daniels. He's like 48 years old now, and he was still hanging in there with the younger guys. Good for him. Apparently in the tag team matches, there's going to be a 10 count instead of a 5 count for one of the wrestlers from the team to get the person who's not legal in the match. They have 10 seconds to get back on the apron instead of 5 seconds, basically. Which is fine because in most of these tag matches, it always breaks down anyway. So it's like, where's that 5-second rule? It always goes out the window, which I'm sure it's going to do in the future with AEW. And I feel like it did here too. But hey, I mean, it makes a little bit more sense. Give them a little more leeway. Yeah, I'm fine with that. Daniels actually scored the pinfall with the best moonsault ever / tombstone pile driver combo. So Kazarian's doing the tombstone while Daniels is doing the best moonsault ever at the same time, just to give it a little bit more impact. So yeah, really solid opening match to kick off the show. We had a 4-way women's match. Allie, formerly of Impact Wrestling, was the guest commentator. It was supposed to be a triple threat, Britt Baker versus Nyla Rose versus Kylie Ray, but then Brandy Rhodes came out. She was in her ring gear, so it was like a tease that she was going to be the fourth person, I guess, the person in charge booking themselves into a match. But then it was a swerve. Brandy brought out Awesome Kong, formerly Karma in WWE, and of course Awesome Kong for several years in Impact Wrestling. This was a solid match. I mean, it didn't really stand out to me all that much, but it was good for what it was. There were no bad matches on this show. Every match was at least good, and some of them were great. This was a good match. I wouldn't call it a great match or anything, but it was very solid. Baker picked up the pinfall victory over Ray with the super kick and the last shot. And I figured that. I mean, going in, it felt like the most stock was being put into her, so I'm not surprised she won the match. The Homie Films with a $2 super chat says, what an amazing show live. Crowd was amazing. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I mean, the crowd definitely sounded red hot through pretty much the entire show. Don Wooding with a $5 super chat says, $5 towards the engagement ring fund. Sir, they're expensive. Keep up the great work, young grasshopper. Well, thank you for that, Don Wooding. I appreciate that. So yes, the return of the welfare queen, if you guys have been following up on Glow on the Netflix service. All right, so let's move on to the next match, which was the Best Friends versus Angelico and Jack Evans. So the only person I'm somewhat familiar with is Jack Evans because I used to watch him at PWG about 15 years ago, and it's been a while. I haven't seen him wrestle in years. I wasn't even sure if he was still wrestling, but apparently he's been wrestling in Mexico a lot. He did a lot of crazy stuff in this match, as I figured he would. Angelico and Evans were doing lots of innovative, flashy double team moves. Way too many that I can even think of. I mean, this show was definitely overload with moves. So if you're a fan of moves, this was a perfect show for you. Mike B with a $5 super chat says, TJS's stream got taken down more times than EC3 has been on WWE TV lately. Ouch. That must be it's gotta be the Savage line of the night so far. But the night is still young. I still got several more matches to go here. By the way, thank you to everyone watching live. We have over 500 live viewers, which is the most for a NoDQ stream since WrestleMania. Thank you guys so much for that. If you're watching for the first time, hit that subscribe button if you're having a good time. I do these streams regularly for Raw, SmackDown, WWE pay-per-views, and now AEW shows. So hit the subscribe button. And if you guys are enjoying the stream, also head over to NoDQ.com/shirts. 20% off through Monday morning. Use the code SPRING because it's springtime. Use the code SPRING to get 20% off your entire order. Tons of NoDQ shirts over at NoDQ.com/shirts. So anyways, Best Friends won with the top rope stomp. I think that's what they won with. I'm not entirely sure. Edgar with a $2 super chat said, somebody said that this ring set looked like WCW. Well, yeah, I mean, it did have a WCW feel to it a little bit, and the whole, like I said, the overall production feel of it felt like WCW, but that's because they have Keith Mitchell, who was doing production for WCW and TNA for several years. After the match, the two teams shook hands. They hugged it out. I guess that's the Best Friends gimmick. They hug everything out. What are they, Kane and Daniel Bryan? The lights went out. People were thinking there was going to be a big surprise here. It wasn't really that big of a surprise. It was a new tag team debuting. The announcers were confused as to who they were, which was a little surprising to me. The crowd was booing this, and not in a good way. They were booing because I guess they were expecting a bigger surprise. It was a team known as the Super Smash Brothers. I guess that's what they're called on the indies. And then there were a bunch of other guys that were like their minions wearing masks. This team, Super Smash Brothers, whatever, I'm guessing they're going to have a new name because of the obvious copyright, trademark. This team laid out the Best Friends and Angelico and Evans. So there you go. The tag division heating up in All Elite Wrestling. Edge, Lord of House Grease with a $2 super chat says, hey, Triple H, we got your pissant hanging. Well, there you go. And I'll talk about that more here in a minute. Next up, we had the 6-women tag match, which I really wasn't that invested in. It was a good match, but the only person, it was a 6-woman Japanese match, all Japanese superstars. The only person I recognized was Aja Kong, and you have to go way back in WWE. She was there in 1995. She feuded with Medusa before Medusa went to WCW and they shut down the women's division in WWE. Other than that, I'm not familiar with any of the women in this match. So this was more or less my bathroom break match. I mean, it was a good match, but I have that disconnect as an American who doesn't really watch Japanese wrestling. But the crowd there, they were familiar with them and they were into the match. They were chanting, "This is wrestling," and it was good. From what I saw, it was good. Dylan with a $2 super chat says, how do you not remember Trent Beretta from WWE? I think he was in WWE, you're right, but I don't remember him doing anything. Wasn't he like on Main Event or whatever the C show was at the time. I don't think he actually did much on the main roster from what I remember. So we even had weapons in this 6-woman match. They had a trash can in there. They had a kendo stick. And I'm not sure how to pronounce the names, but Cheetah, I think, got the pinfall. Pin Sakura. I'm not entirely sure on those names, but yeah, it was a good match. Good match, no complaints about it. Just there's a disconnect for me personally because I wasn't familiar with pretty much everyone in the match. But it's good to have variety, you know? I'm all for it because you have a little bit of something for everybody. So to me, it's still a positive. Then we had one of the big matches, Cody Rhodes versus Dustin Rhodes, brother versus brother. Cody Rhodes came out, had this big entrance. There was a throne on the stage, which was looking very similar to a certain man of 3H's throne that he might be sitting on for a big match. Chris Mace with a $2 super chat says, please tell us your best and worst match. Well, I would say that this was the best match, and I'll explain why. Cody Rhodes came out. Brandy handed Cody a sledgehammer. Crowd was going nuts for Cody, by the way. They were into him. They were cheering him so much. Cody took the sledgehammer and proceeded to destroy the throne. In case you were wondering what the throne was about, the sledgehammer made it clear. He destroyed the sledgehammer. And then the announcers brought up how Cody's mission is to end the Attitude Era, which Dustin Rhodes was a big part of course, as Goldust. You had Earl Hebner as the referee for the match. And once the match got going, the story was pretty much that Cody was going to win at all costs. So he was basically the heel in this match. Brandy was interfering on his behalf. She even speared Dustin at one point, and then Earl Hebner kicked out Brandy from the match. The Game of Sin 100 with a $5 super chat. Thank you for that. He says, why would AEW and Cody destroy a Triple H style set just to declare war on WWE? They should just concentrate on AEW and don't pay attention to WWE. The reason they did it is because it got people talking, and this is your first show. You want to get a buzz. And it was one of the biggest trending stories of the pay-per-view. So yeah, it's the first show and they're trying to send a message. If they did this at every single show, then yeah, that would come off as very petty and second rate. But I think for the first show, it's not a big deal that they did this. And again, it's a receipt for what WWE and Triple H most notably said at the Hall of Fame ceremony. And Ken terminated by Google. If you're not at Monday's chat, then we'll see you another time. At one point, I think it was Cody, I'm not sure, but the middle turnbuckle pad got removed. Cody was going to go for Shattered Dreams, but then, or Dustin was going to go for Shattered Dreams, and then Cody ended up throwing Dustin into the exposed turnbuckle. And at this point, Dustin got busted open. He was bleeding like crazy. I mean, this was a pretty significant blade job. He was just, as Gordon Soley might say, he was wearing the crimson mask. Dustin tried to make a comeback. He ended up getting put in a submission hold. And this was a throwback to my favorite match of all time. So I loved this part. You had Dustin Rhodes in the submission hold and a throwback to when Steve Austin was bleeding in the sharpshooter. And TGS is like, why wasn't it a DQ when Dustin went into the turnbuckle pad? I guess more because Cody sidestepped him, and it was more Dustin's momentum going into the turnbuckle pad. I guess that's the explanation for it. Colin Andrew with a $2 super chat says the reference to Austin versus Hart was awesome. Yeah, and again, the storyline of the match was that Cody was trying to end the Attitude Era. So I like the little throwback here with Dustin in the submission hold bleeding, just like Steve Austin was at the end of that WrestleMania 13 match. And TGS says, what about the low blow and the belt? Again, I think the referee was just showing some leeway. The low blow, I'm not sure if the referee saw that or not. I don't remember. But yeah, there was a point where Dustin got back into the match. He started using the belt on Cody. But then Cody hit the low blow. And then they traded a couple of crossroads back and forth. But eventually, after Dustin kicked out of the first crossroads, Cody hit a second one and scored the pinfall victory. I loved this match. I thought it was tremendous. Great old school match. And I think Dusty Rhodes would be very proud of his kids for this. I mean, it was a really well-worked match. Crowd chanted "Fight Forever." I think it was Dustin Rhodes' best match of his career. And for Cody, this is right up there with the Nick Aldis match as far as his best matches go. But I would definitely say this was the best Dustin Rhodes match I've ever seen. So if this is the end of his career, which actually doesn't look like he's done just yet, but if he's going to be wrapping up pretty soon, this was a great way to go out. I love the outfit he had too, although I'm not sure the red worked really well with the blade job. You know, if you're gonna bleed, you gotta take a page from Ric Flair and you gotta wear white. You don't wear red if you're gonna bleed because then it's harder to notice. But it was still noticeable because he cut himself pretty significantly. After the match, of course, this was pretty predictable, but it was still well done. You know, I figured, you know, they got this. They're trying to make this this personal feud between these guys, and I really wasn't buying it with the build-up that they were doing. The match got a little bit more intense, but I figured after the match, you know, they would just shake hands and they're going to hug and they're going to make up, you know, that sort of thing, which is pretty much exactly what they did. But it was still well done. Cody got on the mic and asked Dustin for a favor. He asked Dustin to be his partner at Fight for the Fallen, which is the July pay-per-view. They have a June pay-per-view called Fighter Fest, and then they have a July one called Fight for the Fallen. It's going to be Cody and a partner of his choosing against the Young Bucks, and Cody wanted Dustin to be his partner. He said he doesn't need a partner or a friend, he needs his older brother. And then Dustin gave Cody the big hug. Everybody was crying, very emotional moment. Great stuff here. I thought this was all really well done, and I thought this was the match of the night, quite frankly. Edgar, with a $2 super chat, says, you can see Dustin cut himself 3 times on the replay. Well, there you go. I didn't notice it the first time watching it, but I'll have to go back and look for that. Next up, we had the presentation of the AEW World Championship. Bret Hart came out, and I wonder how Vince McMahon felt about that. Bret Hart didn't screw Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon screwed Vince McMahon. Oh, and TGS is like, what about the Stardust chant? Yeah, I do recall that now. I just didn't have it in my notes. So thank you for that, TJS. Always making sure I cover everything here, so I appreciate it. Bret Hart said it was an honor to be in Las Vegas to present the AEW World Championship. Bret then introduced Hangman Page, who was the winner of the Battle Royal from earlier. But then he was interrupted by MJF. MJF got asshole chants from the fans. He called himself the fastest rising star in wrestling. And then the best line, in my opinion, was when he trolled Bret Hart by saying that there's a fan right behind him in the ring. That of course, is a reference to the Hall of Fame where that fan attacked Bret Hart. That was a great line by MJF. Awesome stuff. Future Shocker 16 with a $2 super chat says, so is there going to be an AEW pay-per-view every month? That I don't know, but they have at least 3 more scheduled. They have the Fighter Fest in June, Fight for the Fallen in July, and then they have All Out, which is going to be the 1-year anniversary since All In on August 31st. That might be the last one. I don't know if they'll do a September one. They haven't announced anything for September yet. So I think the next show after All Out is going to be the debut on TNT, and then they'll probably start doing more pay-per-views. we had MJF saying that Adam Page should relinquish the title match. And then we had Jungle Boy come out to confront him. And Jimmy Havoc also came out, who was in the Battle Royal. And they all ran off MJF. MJF did a great job. He's such a good promo. I saw him at the Defy show in Portland a couple of months ago. And he's a real pro when it comes to the promos. He does such a great job. Such a great talker. Bret Hart then revealed the new championship, which some people said looks like the Impact World Championship. I thought it looked pretty good, although they didn't get a really good camera angle of it. They almost missed it completely, as a matter of fact, but they did manage to get a little bit of it. They didn't zoom in on it really close like I thought they would, but from what I saw, it looks pretty good. So there you go. Next up, we had the Young Bucks versus the Lucha Brothers in the semi-main event. Wow, this match was absolutely insane. I mean, as far as gymnastics go, if that's your thing, if you like the gymnastics aspect of pro wrestling, then this was an A+ match for you. These guys just did move after move after move. It was nonstop action. Like, if these guys were around in TNA might still be doing well. I mean, they were Generation Me, and TNA did nothing with them, of course. These guys this was the epitome of total nonstop action, because they were just doing one crazy thing after another. Tony H with a $2 super chat says, match of the night here, incredible. See, I prefer the Cody and Dustin match just because they did more with less, if you know what I mean. Like, I prefer a match where you can tell a story with making fewer high spots and having a match where it's more about the story than just look how many moves we can do in 15-20 minutes. But with that said, this was quite the spectacle. I mean, this was very entertaining from start to finish. And ultimately, that's what it's supposed to be about. You're supposed to be entertained, and people have different ways of entertaining, whether it's doing a lot of blood or going through tables or doing as many flips as he can. I mean, there's all sorts of different ways to do wrestling. So yeah, I mean, the real positive about this show was that we did have a lot of different things on this show. It wasn't just one style of wrestling. Young Bucks came out looking like the Flying Elvises from TNA. They had the Elvis Presley style outfits, and then they shot a bunch of $100 Young Buck bills into the crowd. Just like they do in boxing, they had referee Rich Knox give all the pre-match instructions and say, I want to have a good, clean fight. And Jim Ross even made a reference to what's his name, the old boxing guy that I can't remember his name now. Judge Mills Lane, right? I'm not sure, but I'll move on here. I'm sure you guys in the chat know who I'm talking about. We had the announcers bring up how the Young Bucks had only wrestled a couple of times in 2019, while the Lucha Brothers had been very active over the past several months, so that would give the Young Bucks a disadvantage. Ryan Brutally with a $2 super chat says, what did you think about the Triple H diss? Again, I had no problem with it. If they do it on a regular basis, it's going to become overkill and it'll start to make AEW look second rate. But I'm fine on the first show, giving the fans that little dig. You know, the fans ate it up. So, you know, if it's going to get a good reaction from the people, you might as well do it. This is your first show. You're making a statement. We're here, and we're sticking it to WWE. So yeah, I had no problem with it personally. So many moves in this match that I can't even recap. Again, head over to NoDQ.com. You can see a whole bunch of highlights from the match. There's just like all these dives, all these flips, lots of acrobatics. Crowd ended up giving both teams a standing ovation, and you could see Phoenix with this big smile on his face when he's supposed to be selling. You know, they're all knocked down from all the super kicks, and Phoenix is there smiling because of the standing ovation. A little bit of little bit of corpsing, as Botchamania might refer to it as. The Young Bucks were paying homage, I was trying to say, to various tag teams that they feuded with, including the Motor City Machine Guns. I would have not caught that if the announcers didn't bring it up, because I haven't really been following a lot of what the Young Bucks have been doing on the indies. But yeah, they were doing that. Matt Jackson actually was selling a little bit with his arm, but then the Young Bucks hit the Meltzer driver to pick up the victory. So there you go. Young Bucks retain the AAA tag team titles. This was a tag team title match for the AAA titles, and hell of a match. I mean, just really entertaining from start to finish. Just a complete spectacle. Not a dull moment in the entire match. And then we had the main event of the evening, Chris Jericho versus Kenny Omega, the rematch from the Wrestle Kingdom show, I think 2018, if I recall correctly. Chris Jericho had a really cool entrance. There were several guys that were reenacting Jericho's various entrances over the years. You had somebody out there doing Lionheart. Chris Jericho, might have been Jungle Boy. A couple people were saying that. I don't know if it was him or not. You had somebody else doing the Jericho light up jacket entrance. And then you had another person doing the List of Jericho entrance. And then finally, the man himself, Jericho, came out to Fozzy's Judas. Early in the match, Jericho grabbed the ring bell and declared himself the winner of the match, and there was this brawl on the outside. Omega ended up getting pushed off the barricade into the first row, and then Jericho, a little call back to the New Japan match. He grabbed the cameraman and took the camera and started filming Omega, but then Omega spit water in his face. Wrestling Superstars 83 with a $2 super chat says, "Thank you for this review of AEW, Aaron. #respect." Well, thank you for watching. I appreciate your viewership. And again, for those of you watching this for the first time, if you're enjoying the video, please subscribe, tell a friend, spread the word, and of course, stay tuned to NoDQ.com and check out the results. Lots of highlights and various GIFs, whatever you want to call them, to give you more of a picture of what happened at the show. We had Chris Jericho start yelling at the fans. There was a fan who was dressed up as Jesus, apparently, and he got under Jericho's skin, and Jericho started trash talking this guy. Deathstroke DMV with a $2 super chat says, "Amazing show. Thank you for the review." Again, thank you for watching. I really appreciate you guys tuning in and showing your support. Can we ban the Master Knicker? Just ban him. Outright ban the guy. There was a table that came into play, and I'm not sure where they got this table. This was like one of those, I don't want to say dollar store, but Goodwill tables. Like, I'm not sure. It felt like that table I put myself through on a live stream a couple of years back. But anyways, Kenny Omega did this huge swanton dive over the top through the table. Well, not through it. The table didn't break. Even though the table looked cheap, it didn't break at first. And then Omega tried to do a foot stomp and didn't exactly get the job done. And once again, the table did not break. So I am the table botchamania moment right there. Omega was bleeding from the nose. I'm not sure what happened to his nose, what caused that to happen. But yeah, his nose got busted up. Jericho hit a mid-air code breaker, but Omega kicked out. And then Jericho came back and won the match with the Judas Effect elbow. So the elbow that Jericho teased in a video was going to be his new finisher actually finished the match and got him the win. So Chris Jericho defeated Kenny Omega with the Judas Effect elbow. Match was pretty good, but I mean, it was really tough to follow the Cody and Dustin match, and also the Young Bucks and Lucha Brothers. So I don't think it was quite as good as their New Japan match, and I don't think it was as good as those other two matches. It was still pretty good, but I think it was just maybe not what people were hoping for this main event match, at least, compared to what they did in the New Japan match. Afterwards, Jericho cut a promo, and he called the fans a bunch of marks. He said to lighten up. He called them ungrateful jerks. Virtue was just having the time of his life. Virtue, of course, part of the NoDQ team, NoDQ review team. He loves Jericho, and I do too. This was a great promo. He said his time is now. He said AEW is not a company for the fans. It is a company for him. He took credit for the TV deal and the ticket sales, and he demanded a thank you. And that's when we had the really big surprise. Dean Ambrose, now known as Jon Moxley, making his AEW debut. He got in the ring, he confronted Jericho, and then he laid out Jericho with the dirty deeds, which they just referred to as a DDT. I'm guessing it'll get a new move, or a new name, I should say. And then he took out the referee, and then Omega was starting to get to his feet. And at this point, Moxley went after Omega. Omega started to fight back, however, and they got into this huge brawl. The crowd was going nuts for this, chanting, "Holy shit." And then the two of them ended up on the staging area. There was a set of poker chips on the stage, giant poker chips. The two of them climbed up on the chips, and then Moxley did the dirty deeds on the poker chip set. Then he took Omega and threw him off the stage, and Omega crashed through the bottom of the set. And that's how the pay-per-view ended, with Jon Moxley taking out Chris Jericho and Kenny Omega. So there you go. The big surprise. And like I said earlier, CM Punk would have been huge. But in a way, I think Jon Moxley is better for AEW because he's fresh off of WWE, and they didn't even bury him completely at the end. They did the Shield reunion. They gave Moxley this big send-off. So he left WWE in a really good position. They didn't job him out to Nia Jax. They had him go out with Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins. Power Packers 90, go ahead and call in if you would like to call in, and we'll get Power Packers 90's thoughts on the show. Let's see here. Power Packers 90 with a $2 super chat says, "Is it cool if I call in?" Yes, you can call in. We'll get your thoughts on the show. And He-Man with a $5 super chat says, "Having pay-per-views every month, what looks like they are doing for $50 when WWE through network only $10. Is it a good business plan for AEW?" I think so. I don't think it's going to be the end-all, be-all of their business, whether they do huge pay-per-view buys or not, but they have enough of a devoted fan base where I think they'll do all right, and they may even get profitable. But it's going to take a while, I think, for them to be profitable. Power Packers, are you there?
Yeah, I'm right here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine. 1 second here. Nelson Moreno with a $2 super chat says, "Pay-per-view of the year yet?" Very well could be. And DJ Witty got it right this time with a $5 super chat, says, "I still can't believe WWE couldn't keep this guy. WWE really dropped the ball, losing a member of one of the biggest factions in the last decade." I think we could all agree with that, but I guess they tried to throw a lot of money at Ambrose, and sometimes there are more important things than money. Anyways, Power Packers, you were there in Las Vegas for the show, so go ahead and tell us your thoughts on the Double or Nothing pay-per-view.
Oh my God, the hype is real. I mean, that was probably one of the best shows I've been to live in my lifetime. I've got to say that hands down.
I mean, the crowd atmosphere had to be like off the charts.
Oh, I was saying this to one of my friends as we walked in. The buzz. It's like the only thing I compare it to is probably what people felt like at Mania 1 or the first Starrcade or something. Like you felt like you're going to tell your kids one day, "I was at the first All Elite show."
Right. Now, from your perspective, being there live, what would you say was the crowd's favorite moment? And was there anything that the crowd saw as a negative?
For negative, it had to be when the bell rang during the first women's match, because then we all chanted, you fucked up and Botchamania and all that stuff.
Right.
But other than that, there wasn't, ironic enough, for a building full of marks and smarks and stuff like that. Other than that, it was like what you want a wrestling crowd to be: booing the heels, cheering the baby face, standing ovations during high spots. It was pretty well. Of course, the highlight though, and got the loudest pop was Cody taking over the kingdom, like his theme song would say.
Now, who would you say got the biggest reaction on the show, and what would you say was the best match on the show?
Cody got a big reaction, obviously, for the Triple H, a little dig there that everybody popped for. Kenny did. Jericho got a big pop, especially when they the different eras of his career. Mostly the people who you expect. When DDP did the little run in to pull Brandy out, he got a really huge reaction. Of course, when Super Smash Bros. Or whatever the hell they were called, there was "Who are you?" chants. There was even a few when the minions jumped in the ring. I turned it, and I just had to yell out in front of people. I actually go, "Where's the Power Rangers? It's the Body Patrol!"
Right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for reminding me about DDP. I think I forgot to mention him earlier. Yeah, DDP came out and carried Brandy out, literally carried her out, and that was a nice cameo. I thought that was a nice execution of having DDP out there for a cameo appearance. How was the reaction to Brett?
Brett got a huge pop. Of course, there was some heckling from some people, when are somebody's going to jump him again or something like that.
Right. Well, MJF brought that up. That was a great dig.
Yeah, when he mentioned that, I got a little bit of a laugh and a boo. You know what I mean? It's it's a funny line, but nobody wants to give this asshole the time of day for it.
Right.
And of course, when you realize that the guy, because all you see is Jericho in the ring, he's all "shut up, you marks," which got a few boos, but it was mostly people going, "Yeah, whatever." I mean, mark is kind of a Trekkie term now, I think.
Right.
But once you notice that the spotlight is on this certain area by one of the entrances, it's oh my God, they're getting the Shield entrance for Jon Moxley, and all of a sudden, here he comes, and then it had to be what it was like when Luger came out in that first Nitro. It was oh my God, he's actually there! Oh my God!
Right. Yeah, that was pretty epic. I mean, I was thinking when Jericho was doing that promo, they're not going to end it on this, so they got to have something happening here.
I thought, I'm okay, we're probably not going to get Moxley. I mean, the people who think Punk's still in the building, you were never going to get that. I mean, he called it MMA fight that same night halfway across the country.
Well, actually, no, he was not that far away. He was in Palm Springs, which is only 4 hours from Vegas.
Yeah, I thought for sure, but I was thinking, okay, they're going to close the show with Paige coming out again. They're going to do the stare down. So when I realized that, oh my God, they're kind of putting the spotlight by this little area, and then you notice Moxley walk out, it was what they should have did. It was so great to see it. And I just got to say, Tuesdays and Mondays, a certain big dog gets booed, and this guy gets the loudest pop in the building.
Right.
By 20,000, not really, people. Maybe they made the wrong choice.
Right. All right. Any final thoughts you have on the show?
Just, wow, it was really fun. Emotional. I mean, if I saw my voice sounds funny, it's because I think I'm still crying a little bit from the Cody. I just want my big brother moment when he was talking about the tag match.
I mean, how many people were legitimately crying over that?
It was I was, because personally, just 2 weeks ago, me and my brother, we lost my father. Oh. So I could kind of understand where they were coming from with they did it for Dusty. So I was crying about thinking about my dad.
Yeah.
So I didn't really notice if everybody was doing it, but leaving the building, I noticed a lot of people that were looked like they had dry tears. But then again, that might have been residuals from Kenny's spit on Cody.
All right. Well, it sounds like you had a great time, and thank you so much for calling in. I appreciate it. Anything you would like to plug or promote?
I just want to say, since I know that now All Out is only going to be 30 minutes from where I live, if I came all the way to Vegas, I'm sure I'm going to be there for All Out. So if anybody in the NoDQ Galaxy is going to be in that area for that show or Survivor Series, come say hi to me. I'm an awesome dude.
Yeah, I mean, I may have to go to All Out. We'll see. Cody unblocked me on Twitter, so maybe something can happen.
Well, maybe.
We'll see. Never say never, as they say. All right, well, thanks so much. Have a great night. Take care, my friend. Thanks for the call.
No problem. Thanks.
All right, take care. All right, so now Dylan Hensley with a $5 super chat says, from what I've seen, Ambrose never impressed me, but now that the WWE shackles are off, maybe Moxley can perform at a higher level and be a bigger star. Well, only time will tell on that. We'll see what he can do without the WWE machine. Will he sink or swim? That remains to be seen. We also have over 600. Well, we did have over 600 at one point. Let's do the letter grade for the show now. I don't think it was like 100% perfect. There were little hiccups here and there, but this was an A show. I definitely give it a solid A. They hit a home run tonight. They fired on all cylinders, and they got people excited and hyped up for the future. This was the first time in a while I was like watching this show, and I'm like legitimately excited to see what happens next. And it's been a while since I felt that way about a wrestling show. So hats off to AEW. They pulled off a really strong first show. We'll see if they can keep the momentum going. Elliot May with an A, Dylan Hensley with an A-, Dave Stufflebeam with a B, Chris Manley 1994 with an A, Caleb Jacobs A+, Ma Wrestling A-, Kev Dog with an A, Colin Andrew with an A, Joe Johnson with an A-, CC Drink with a B, Noah Foster with an A, Mr. Anderson with an A, and Kemet Hayes with an A+. Power Packers 90, who just called, with an A+++++++++. And the Cheapest Heat with an A. And Zach Rosser says, hi, Noah. Best match, in my opinion, I give it to Cody and Dustin. But I know a lot of people will go with the Young Bucks and the Lucha Brothers. And great match also, but in a different way. Hab Connor with a $2 super chat says, I give it an A and not an F-. Can you believe it? Well, there you go. So for fans out there that are tired of WWE, you got something to be excited about, and the future for wrestling definitely looks bright now. We got a real contender for WWE now, and that this is the most exciting moment to be a wrestling fan in a very long time. All right, guys, so I will go ahead and wrap up this live recap of Double or Nothing. Again, NoDQ.com for the latest updates, and check out the results from the show. And make sure you guys support the site, pick up a shirt, NoDQ.com/shirts. And, of course, subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Tell a friend, spread the word. Dylan with a $5 super chat, so one more comment here from him. He says, this is the first time I felt like a fan instead of a critic. Finally, wrestling can be cool again. And Ken, terminated by Google, says, Dylan, good point. Very good point there, Dylan, and thank you for that super chat. Thank you all so much for watching. Have a great night, and I will see you guys Monday night back to WWE.